Well, we do have some good news. We all did well in the predictions. The one team that, and most teams did pretty decently. One team didn't. They, in fact, scored the lowest score in any game in NBL history. Well, second lowest. That team and more. This is Sports Hour. All right, so we are going into week 4 here, and most of the teams did pretty well this last week, except for one. Absolutely, what I want to say is probably the worst picks, one of the worst things in the Arians. I know most of us did pretty well in our hands for it. The team that did the worst from week 3 was, in fact, the Bobcats. The Bobcats were going around 1-2. They ended up deciding, you know what, we don't want to play. Or they needed to get a new coach because they were predicted plus 20. They lost by 87. So I think they're going to need to either get a new coach or do something better. And this was a Monday game, so this is one of the teams that they should have had the most preparation to do it. So most of the games did pretty well. There were a few games that did go into overtime, but absolute blowout for that in one game. There were a few other blowout games. The Lynx were able to defeat the Angels by a lot, and saw it. And the Texans held down the Colts to hold it 3 minutes. So let's talk about a few teams that are still undefeated going into up until this point. So there's still quite a few teams, and if we don't have to play playoffs participation start in week 5. That's the technical earliest that anyone could potentially make the playoffs. That means they have to be 5-0, and everyone else in the division would be terrible. So it has to be like 0-5, which is probably not happening. But anyways, the few teams that are still undefeated. Panthers, number 1 in offense, 25th in defense, have a great score, almost scoring 160 per game. Cardinals, not far behind. They have 108 points per game, but they are 3rd ranked in defense. Their defense is actually holding out most of their games. Ravens are still undefeated. At this point, they have probably the best average overall, being 3rd in offense and 7th in defense. Indians are still undefeated, surprisingly. I mean, no one of us expected that the Indians were actually going to be good this year. The Indians currently are. I think the prediction. If you go to the. Let's see if I have the Indians here. The prediction was they were supposed to lose all the games, the first 10 games of the season. Well, they've won the first 3, so they're already. And actually, their prediction record was 3-13. And the 3 games they were supposed to win aren't until much later in the season. So the Indians are doing really well at this point. I honestly think this is going to be one of the teams that's going to actually be wins. I think one of the things about Indians is that the Indians haven't made the playoffs very much. Let's see. Finding the Indians here. So the Indians have made the playoffs only once, and that was in 2010. That was before we really got into it. So they made the 2010. Yeah, they made it as a wild card slot, by the way. So yeah, that wasn't a dance. But anyways, that was also a point where they had 2 seasons at that point. So they made, I think, in the early season. Yeah, early season. So it would have been the spring. What would be the spring season now? All right, now we have more teams. We have Falcons are still undefeated. Not exactly showing up though. They're currently not exactly in the best position right now. They're not bad. I mean, but they have had an easier schedule. While technically undefeated, the Leland Cats are undefeated technically. They're 2-1, 2-0-1. They haven't lost a game yet. They, however, tied in one of their games. They actually tied against, I believe it was one of the other teams I believe they tied with the Giants, remember correctly? Can I get that confirmed here? Let's see. The Leland Cats did actually tied with the Giants. So, and that was a surprising game, too. The problem is the team that they've lost hasn't won any games yet, so it's not exactly looking out too well. The Indians still undefeated, of course. Let's see. The Otters are undefeated. They were able to beat out the Indians in overtime. So it was these 2 teams are both very good at this point in time. Beagles and Huskies are both undefeated. They haven't played yet. I think they will possibly have to play at some point, and then Texas are still undefeated. So we got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Technically 8.5 teams right now that are still undefeated. And officially, there's a possibility. I think that 2 of these teams could stay undefeated. But if we look back to it, the Huskies, if we looked here for that division where the 2 undefeated teams that are still running, there's still several things. You can see the Huskies and Beagles are undefeated, but they haven't. They will play at some point this season. I'm making sure I know which week. Yeah, so they do play. They actually play They don't play until week. Which week is this? They don't play until week 10. So they got a few more games. They were supposed to lose the first 2 games and then win. And they win. So they actually so far are only 2 games ahead of their supposed record. But yeah, they will have to play a team who make it undefeated. The other 2 teams that are undefeated, they're in the same division. I'm not counting and then, by the way, the R's and Lanes were undefeated before this, but they had to face each other. The Panthers and Cardinals, and I believe Panthers and Cardinals plays next week. Am I correct? Oh, never mind. It is not until week 8 that they'll face each other. So there's still a few games. And honestly, we did not think that at this point that Panthers would be undefeated. We thought they were going to lose against the Foxes, and it was a much closer game for most of the game. Foxes kind of gave in at the end here, so we do have a portion of that for games. I think the Panthers probably are going to win a few more, are still going to win a few more games. I think they're going to struggle against the games against the Legends. Supposed to lose both of those games. I think they're going to win one of them, but they're probably not going to win both of them. All right. What does it mean to be undefeated at this point? Because I don't know if it means much right now. Because some of these teams, obviously for the Panthers, their first offense, and honestly, they might stay in first. To be honest, even if they do lose the game, they might still have enough schedule to point out to the point where they're actually going to be in a pretty good position. I don't think there's much of a chance the Panthers are going to be anything lower than, let's say, 5th rank. Panthers' lowest rank, by the way, in the last few years, their lowest rank they've ever had offensive was 10th. That was in 2016. So they have not had it. Now they've had great. They've had their highest was 4th in defense. Their lowest was actually 30th. So they have had a kind of a mixture between those. I think honestly the teams are still looking at being kind of not 100% sure what they're going to do for it. So we'll have to see that. I think the teams right now that are proving they're in it are the Cardinals. Although we did not think the Cardinals were going to do well. Also, the Cardinals were predicted to go 1-15. Well, they've already beaten that by 2 games. The only game they were supposed to win was against the Giants. Well, granted, the Stars have not been good. Dogs are kind of iffy. And the Legends have not shown up either. So, honestly, they've played 3 pretty easy games going up to this point. As for the Panthers, they've done about 2 easy games and 1 hard game. So, they're not exactly in a best position either. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting for the Cardinals. The other team, the Ravens. Ravens, we kind of expected to be really, really good. Where's the Ravens? They've also not played particularly hard teams. Bears weren't predicted to be very good. Hawks were actually predicted to be very good. They've been terrible. Giants kind of iffy, so at this point, they could be good, could be a bad thing. It kind of depends on the week. But they're still undefeated. And honestly, I think they're going to be undefeated for a few more weeks. I don't know. Otters might be their first loss. They will have to play them this week. Next undefeated team is the Indians. Indians, we did not expect the Indians to come in close to that. Indians so far, taking a look at the Indians. Indians have had 3 semi-easy games. Okay, we'll rephrase that. Their Bulldogs game was not easy. They ended up winning that game. It was at the very last second. Dragons game was their hardest game so far, honestly, in my opinion. And honestly, I feel that this is probably not their first 3 easy games. Are just not exactly showing up for us. I think they're going to have a hard time going into later in the season. A 3-13 doesn't seem like it's going to be accurate to me anymore. I would say they're probably going to be about half and half. All right. Next team is undefeated right now is the Falcons. Okay. Falcons. Yeah, they've had some decently easy games, but they haven't won by a whole lot. So I think, honestly, they are probably going to struggle over the next couple weeks. I won't be surprised if they end up going, when they get to the midway season, they actually end up being about probably 4 and, let's see, 4-5 at that point. About 4 and, yeah, it'd be about 4-5. I think maybe 4-4. I think it's going to be very difficult to see the Falcons winning most of these games. Point for each other. They've surprised us so far. Otters. We kind of expect the Otters to be, really good. They have been better than we thought they were going to. Now, granted, they are in one of the tougher divisions right now, kind of. Now, we did expect them to lose against the Lynx. That's not that big of a surprise. And honestly, divisional games are going to be more and more difficult. I won't be surprised if they actually win. Did I actually do that? I mixed these two up. Yeah, I mixed this up. They were predicted. They did not win. Not that way. They won. They were predicted to lose. These guys lost. They were predicted to win. There we go. Okay, I missed that one up. That's my bad. But looking at what the Otters have had so far, they've had some pretty tough games. And honestly, I think they're going to be really. The real test is going to be this week when they play the Ravens. That's going to be a tough game going into this next season. All right, now going into this one. The Beagles and Huskies, both these teams will have to play each other. Unfortunately, both of them can't be. Although officially, under the new rules of overtime, they could technically both become undefeated through the entire season if they wanted to go 14-0-2. But I think honestly that's unlikely. They tie, but they actually win. They tie both games. Both Beagles and Huskies are in the same division. Did I seriously do that? Hold on. So far, the Huskies have had pretty easy games. I don't think they're going to have much of trouble with this. The Dolphins was probably their hardest game, and they still did pretty well in that game for most of the game. They were winning that entire game. As for the Huskies, they actually have had an easy schedule too. Browns was their toughest game. Superman was actually pretty tough too. So they've had two tough games. In context, the Huskies have had a harder schedule regularly. I'm going to say right now, this is a tough one. I'm going to say the Huskies do slightly better in the end. And of course, I did have the Huskies being fourth. Yeah. This is not going to be easy for me to say what's going to happen in that one. And then we had the last one to the Tex. Yeah, it's a tough one for the Tex because the Tex have had terrible teams so far. They've actually blown out all their teams, pretty much. I mean, the Warriors game was a little closer than that, but they've pretty much been absolutely demolishing all their teams. And if they can, and honestly, they got the Bobcats next week. Bobcats just got demolished by 83 points. Is that right? 83 points? I may have that wrong. It might be... No, it's 83. They just lost by 83 points. So I don't think the Bobcats are going to put up much of a show. So the Bobcats are probably going to still be undefeated for at least one more week. All right, let's get talking about this week's predictions in Week 4. Now, this is a week where I feel that some of the teams are going to be absolutely blown out. Still. Like some of the teams that are going to say, I would say Colts are going to get blown out. Sorry. I will say, right now, I'm going to say the Tex blow out the Bobcats, especially if the Bobcats only put up 1 point. Now, I will point out for the Bobcats game, they did score a total of, 35 points? 34 points. They scored 34 points technically. However, they got 33 penalties, or 33 points that were negated because of penalties. So they did get a little bit in. And honestly, that's what happens to a lot of the games whenever you get to certain points. There are a few games in it. Now, there are a few games that are going to be interesting. We're going to start off with the game of the week, or I'm going to do this differently because they're game of the week. We have the Otters and Ravens. This is tough. This is the toughest game we've had. And if this game somehow ends up being 84-1, I am going to have to say this is got to be crazy. Both these teams, by the way, have the third and sixth most penalties. Worst penalties. Sorry. The Otters have the third lowest amount of penalties, and the Ravens have the fifth lowest amount of penalties. So both these teams should not be worried about penalties. It is at 11 o'clock. Otters are protected by 32 somehow. I don't know how. I think it's to do with their offensive ratings, if I remember correctly. Ours have, I think it comes down to what their power rankings are right now. Looking at the power rankings, I think the Otters are just so much higher than them right now. Yeah, 9, and the Ravens are just so much lower right now for the power rankings. I don't know where they are. I don't know. But either way, this is probably going to be a lot closer to game than what the point score line says. I'm going to say right now, and I'm probably going to regret this, I'm picking the Otters to win this game. The reason I'm saying that is because I think the Otters do have a slightly better balanced team. I do, even though the Ravens don't have any injured or anything like that, I do think no one was injured this last week, so I probably should have looked at that, shouldn't I? Just to make sure there wasn't any injuries. Yeah, there's still a few players out on the Panthers, which didn't affect the Panthers. I don't think there's any injuries. That's not relevant anymore. We already did it. Was there any injuries? Okay, so the Hawks are still out. Still have Jonas Vinci will be out for a few more weeks. So she'll be out until week 6, probably week 6. And Patty Howard is still gonna be out with ACL. She'll be out for the season, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't think there's anyone. There's no one here. Nope. I don't think there's hardly any injuries still, which is a good thing. Because I don't know what injury. There's not really a lot of injuries you can incur. The ACL injury, by the way, was during practice, so it wasn't part of the game. Ethan. Okay. No injuries. I think pretty much everyone's fine. I think if there's any injuries, let me know, because I didn't see. I don't think there were any reported injuries. Oh, yeah, okay. So Jackson is out with concussion right now. I forgot about that one. Yeah, Jackie is ran into the goal during the game. There is one person. Okay, you have to let me know what that one is, because okay, it's not an injury. So there was one person that was suspended, so for the game. Yep. I don't think there's anyone injured. Who is the person who was injured? Now this is a suspension, so it wasn't, and it was on the Bobcats. Sadly. Who is suspended, please? I gotcha. And he's suspended for how long? One game. So what happened with this game? I was going to finish. Is that he got mad during the game and threw the ball at another player. I'm not going to go through who it was, but and then he got mad at the referees, and that caused him to be ejected from the game. I think he just suspended for one game, right? Yeah, he went through the procedures. Yeah, so he went through procedures. We're not going to go over what the procedures are for that. I think we're all go for those. So I just closed the that one. Okay, so let's see. Now the first one we have is Link and the Legends. Links are favored by 25. Problem here was for me is that the Legends should have done a whole lot better than they have. I didn't think they were going to win this game in the first place at the beginning of the season. They're not winning. I don't think they're winning right now. They won again. Who did the Legends even win against? They won week 1, right? Yeah, they won against the Lightning, who were terrible anyways. So that's not great. They got the 8th and Hawks. Now, we don't see very many teams that are 1-1-1 at this point. Nope, the Hawks aren't doing it. The Hawks at this point haven't. Yes, I mean, obviously, one injury is not going to hurt them. They have another person injured at this point in time too, so it's not fun for them. But it's just going to be a point where they just need some hits. I think they need to come up with a better strategy. Until they do, I don't think they're doing it. I don't think they're doing it. All right, got the Bulldogs and the Pirates at 1 o'clock at NBL Stadium. Pirates are favored by 21. I will say right now, looking at the teams, I can call this one now, I believe too. It's tough to go with the Pirates because the Pirates did lose this last week. They lost here. Who are they losing against? They lost against the Dragons, who they should have beat. I don't think the Pirates are going to go back-to-back weeks of the losses, so I'm going to go with the Pirates winning this week. Yes. All right. Browns and Indians. Browns are favored by 1. They were favored by 4 last week, and they lost. If you look at the Browns game from last week, they were favored by 4. And they lost. And they're still going to lose this week, too, because the Indians are going on a hot streak too much. I think the Indians are probably going to start losing after this week. Not quite at a point where they're going to get to the point. Well, they're not going to be to the point yet. Superman and the Jets. This is a tough one game. Jets are favored by only 9. And at this point, this is one of those games that you can't really say what's going to happen because both these teams are 2-1. Both of them are really good teams. And honestly, I think it's going to be a tie. I'm going to go, but I don't have to worry about ties because ties don't count against me. I'm going to go with the Superman winning this game. I think the Superman are going to be just slightly better. But, can I look at the Superman stats? The Superman are tied for 8th and 13th. As for the Jets, they're 6 and 6. So this is actually going to be a tough game. Offensively, the Jets, technically the Jets should win. I think the Supermen are going to win. It's going to be a very close game, though. I think it's going to be a close game. This game could easily be a tie. Falcons, Foxes, and the Knights. Knights have won 2 games. They've won against. They lost week 2, didn't they? Because they lost against the Panthers, right? No, they didn't. They lost in. I think they lost in week 1 versus the Panthers, right? Because they didn't win that week. Yeah. That was a blowout. But Panthers are the number 1 offense. Foxes are not exactly in the worst position right now. If you look at the Foxes' stats, they are not good compared to the Legends, who are not good. But they have a better offense right now, and that I think is going to put the Knights on top. I'm putting the Knights to win this game. I'm the only one that's going for it. The reason why I'm saying that is because I think the Foxes are just not quite there. They're also not exactly. They did lose pretty badly in their 2 games. In one of their games, they lost one against. All right, Panthers and Warriors. Now, originally, I was going to say this is going to be a really, really close game. Screw that. No, not a chance. Warriors haven't won a game yet. They haven't. They have been the worst participating team in history. And the only other team that I think is actually the only other team that might be worse than them right now is the Stars. I don't think there's any other team. UNC is not great, but they haven't been blown out like a lot of this team was. Packers and Dogs. This is a close one. I could easily see this one being the game of Week 2. Packers are favored by 3. I'm going to say this is a close one. I might roll a die. That's not doing any good. 16. I don't know what it was supposed to mean. This is a close one. I am saying this is going to be a close game between these two teams. Packers got a win against one of the worst teams, though, and Dogs, at this point, are 5th in offense. Not great in defense whatsoever, so I think it's going to come down to a lot of defense versus the other team. They've got here the Packers, who won against one of the worst teams. Packers right now are one of the worst teams as well still. They're 2-2. They won. They're not exactly functioning very well. I'm going to say that this game is probably going to end up being in favor of the Dogs. Sure, the Packers got favored, but I don't think that means much. Dolphins and Chargers. Okay, Dolphins and Cardinals. Not Chargers. Dolphins and Cardinals. Cardinals are on a hot streak. Dolphins are going to lose this game. It's just too much for me to say that the Cardinals aren't going to win this game. Cardinals are 10th and 3rd. I don't think there's much of a chance going against. Versus the Dolphins, who are all the way down here. They're almost last. Are 25th and 4th. They're great in the defense, and I think it's going to be a very defensive game. But their offense is going to struggle. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game because the defenses are so high. But I think the Cardinals are going to win that game. Tigers and Lightning. Do I need to say much more? I'm going to go with the Lightning. No, I'm not. This is Tigers. This is Tigers all the way. Tigers are favored by 34. Lightning have not shown up yet. I think they just decided not to come to the games, and then just decided, we're just going to score now. Another game that could be really close is the Lightning and the Lions and Giants game. They're in the same division. Never mind, they're not in the same division, I don't think. Lions are 2-1 right now. Not exactly perfect, very good stats. Versus the Giants, who have not great stats whatsoever. It's very much favor one side to the Lions. And unfortunately, I got to go the Lions way here. I do think it's going to be a much closer game than 20 points. Colts and the Beagles. Do I dare say anything different? It's a 60-point. Yes. Now, Grant, I said that to the Beagles game. No, I said that to the Now, Grant, I said that to the Bobcats game, and they got demolished. So, um, the Colts are just not good enough. I'm gonna go with the Eagles winning this game, and hopefully, it's not going to be an 84-1 game. And by the way, that was the first game in NBL history that had a team score one. But is that really unlikely? There have been more. There have been a lot of games. There's actually been about, how many games do we have that have ended 40-0? There have been 7 games, right? 17 games. 17 games that have ended with a team scoring 0 in the season, in total seasons. Obviously, that has not happened this year. Thank God for that. Huskies and Werewolves. I have to go with the Huskies. I think the Huskies are really good. However, this might be the last week I can pick the Huskies because I don't think they're going to have some struggles in the next couple years. Stars and Leland Cats. Is anyone really going to pick the Stars ever? No. UNC and Chargers. This is actually going to be an interesting game because both these teams are really close up and very close in positions. They're also in the same division, so... Oh, they're not in the same division. They're actually in different divisions. But looking at how the Dolphins, how the UNC has games, I have to go with the Chargers winning this game. Although I think the UNC does have a better team. I'm going with the Chargers to win this game. Angels and Kings. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Kings plus 29. I don't think it's going to be it's going to be a very fun game because Angels right now are 33rd, which is one of the worst teams in the league, and 29th in offense. As for the Kings, they're 9th in defense. They're not great in offense either. I think this is going to be completely up to the defense of the Kings, and the Kings are going to win this game. Puppy is really trying to make sure that he keeps losing. All right, moving on to the Bears and Falcons game. Do we really need to talk about this game? Bears are 0-3, and the Falcons are 3-0. I think it's fair to say that this is going to be an easy Falcon win. Falcons currently, at this time, are not exactly in the best position, but the Angels aren't great, are worse. So, it's not the Angels. But the Bears are pretty bad. So, but here's the thing. What's the Bears' position? Bears are not exactly great either. I think it's going to come down to probably them being a little bit better than I think it's going to be a much closer game than we think. Than we think it's going to be. I'm going with the Falcons. Not Foxes. I'm going with Falcons, but I think it's going to be a closer game than we think. Dragons and Saints. Dragons got a win against the worst team. Saints haven't won yet. This is on Monday. So they had the most time to prepare. Dragons are pretty bad. Saints are actually not good either. So they're better in some contexts, so they do have only a bit. Looking at the weeks of what's happened so far with the Dragons. Actually, we'll put what's going. The Dragons lost barely. Won barely. As for the other side, when we get to which one we're looking at? We're looking at the Saints. We've got we've got them. Lost barely. Lost barely. Yeah, so this is probably a much closer game than I think. And honestly, I'm going to say that the Dragons are not going to hold on to the game. I'm going to go with the Saints winning this game. All right, final one, the Texans Bobcats. I think we all know the Texans are going to win this game, especially if the Bobcats can't put up any points. I mean, seriously, who puts up 1 point? Okay, I'm being mean on purpose in this case because the Bobcats are second in their division right now, but they have just not put up any points. And actually, they're not even second in their division anymore, to be honest. Move them. I put them in the wrong place. The Dolphins are actually up here. They're actually fourth in the division. I looked at that wrong. Sorry about that. Yeah, the Bobcats are not good. And this is probably going to be a game where I'm going to say the Techs are going to absolutely blow them out. And this game should be 84-1. Techs are up by 42, so yeah. All right, that is it for Sports Hour. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to keep your game on. And I'll have another video for next week's to talk about the next week's, which we're hoping to have some better games than we had last week.